Now let's hear these stops. Some of these are designed to be played on their own, and some are not. One of the nice things that Ronald Wall did in 1978 was when he added something, it's lettered in red. Not sure how clearly that will show up here on the video, but I like that because, again, you have a choice, you know what was added, and I will show you the overall effect using just the original stops as well as adding what was put in later. Okay, our most basic stop on any organ is the diapason, those open metal pipes, such as you see in the facade. The great open diapason, that's this knob right here, and I'm going to try as I do this to put still pictures of the pipes that you're hearing on this video as I do it. So here's the open diapason. Now, this is called 8-foot because that low C is approximately 8 feet long, and that foot designation is used on organs as terminology to determine the pitch. So the next part up in the chorus is a diapason or principal. The terms are almost interchangeable. It's a 4-foot stop. So here's the 8-foot. There's the 4-foot. So that lowest pipe there is about 4 feet long. So this is the 4-foot principal. You don't usually use it by itself. Normally it's used together with the diapason. Now, just behind the open diapason is the dulciana. Now again, we don't have notes for the bottom octave, so to get notes there, we draw the stopped diapason bass. Not the same sound, certainly, but at least it gives us some notes. The melodia makes a nice solo flute sound. Those are those open wood pipes. And the stop diapason fits better with it. So maybe not 100% identical, but pretty close. Okay, now I mentioned the chimney flute, which I showed you. Let's hear that one. That's sort of a hybrid between an open flute and a stopped one, because the chimney, that's an opening, but not quite as much of an opening as you have with, say, the melodia. So it partakes of a similar color to the stop diapason, which is really a flute. Whoops. Show you that sound. Here's a stop diapason. We'll get it here in a second. But that chimney flute, or flûte à cheminée, is a sort of half-French title that this has, and that's the spelling that Steer and Turner used originally, too. It's a little brighter than an outright stopped flute. Now we have the next octave in our principal chorus, the 15th, which refers to the interval of 2 octaves. Of course, the 4-foot's in between. So we wouldn't use that by itself much. More often we would draw it with the 8-foot and the 4-foot. Here's without. Okay, now, in addition to that, then we have the mixture, which, well, first of all, the original mixture from Steer and Turner had just 2 sets of pipes. Now, Ronald Wall did an interesting thing that some other organ builders do. He set this up so that you could pull a stop knob halfway out and engage just the original steer and turner ranks. Probably can't see it in the video, but they're lettered in red as 4 ranks. So when you pull it the whole way, you bring on the other 2 sets of pipes per note that Wall added in '78. So right now we're hearing the original principal chorus. Nice and bright and lively. But now I'll hold a chord and draw the other 2 ranks. Okay, now something else that Wall added, mostly to give you more colors for solo sounds, were a couple of, well, one stop, but it's actually another thing you can draw part of it on at once. This is reinforcing higher harmonics also, and most often we would use that with a flute, so I'm drawing the melodia and the flute chimene with it. Okay, so this is called a cornet. Maybe a kind of loose use of the term cornet, but what this is really doing is when I pull it part way out, it's playing a note an octave and a half up there. Hear it? And when I pull it the whole way out, it brings on a note playing 2 octaves plus a third. And without that top rank there. Okay, so that's the cornet. That was completely added by Ronald Wall. So 2 ranks of this mixture were original, 2 ranks were added, 2 sets of pipes. The cornet was added, and the trumpet was added. Now you saw a trumpet pipe taken apart. Now, while we're on this side, I'll show you 2 pedal stops too, because some of the pedal stops are controlled from one side and some from the other. The pedal bourdon, which was originally the only thing we had, that's another stopped diapason. So big wood pipes with a stopper in the top. Originally, this was all there was in the pedal. I'm not sure how clearly you'll be able to hear that on a cell phone video, but okay, so that's a 16-foot pitch, so an octave lower than low C on an 8-foot stop. Okay, the Gouwens horn is a sort of a hybrid somewhere between a flute and a string character. Those are made with tapered pipes, pipes that narrow as you go to the top. And this is at 4-foot pitch, which sometimes is useful as a solo sound and sometimes just to brighten up what's happening in the pedal. So that's the Gouwens horn, lettered in red, because that's from Ronald Wall. Oh, while I'm on this side, let me show you the tremolo. Now, I don't like it beating that fast, so I'm going to play with it a little here. It does take a little trial and error to get that where I want it. Now we'll go over to the swell side. Okay, so at the bottom we have the two couplers to the pedal. I demonstrated that earlier. Swell to pedal, so when I play a note on the pedal, it pulls down the key on the swell manual, and grate to pedal. And some of you may wonder, okay, so if I couple the swell to the grate and couple grate to the pedal, what do I get? As you might guess, that means that this couples through. So if I've coupled swell to grate, that means anytime this key goes down, the swell key goes down. If I couple grate to pedal, that brings both of them down as a result. Whereas, of course, using just the swell to pedal only acts on the swell manual. If you don't understand that fully, not to worry. I'm explaining some of the features here, but you can appreciate this without knowing all of those little details. Okay, the violoncello, those metal pipes that are right behind the transept altar, that's quite a nice solo stop at 8-foot pitch. Now, it's around the corner from where this phone is sitting. When I do my video recordings with the fancier equipment, I actually put a microphone over by that facade. That's a nice enough sound. I can use that as a solo, and sometimes I do. Now, the Cremona, well, that's sort of an unorthodox name for something. Really, it's more sort of a bassoon character. That's a reed pipe with wooden resonators rather than metal. It adds a bit of growl, but without being really loud. It's turned out to be amazingly useful. So this was a great addition to the organ. Parts of it have almost a slightly clarinety flavor. Cremona is a term, well, it's a reference to a city in Italy where Stradivarius was making violins, but on American organs, sometimes that was a corruption of the French cromorne, so a sort of clarinety stop, in other words. Art Lawrence was the organist here by the time this work was done, so he suggested the name Cremona, because it's sort of a unique sound, but really useful in the whole organ. I'll show you that a little bit later. So again, I will show you now in the pedal. Here's the Borden. I'm going to hold this middle C here, add the violoncello, add the Gemshorn, and add the Cremona. So we have a lot more independence. It's still not really an independent pedal division. You need to couple most of the time, but it does have a little more of its own identity in a sense. Okay, now the swell. The open diapason, that's that set of pipes at the back. Open diapason, like what's in the grate, maybe a little smaller scale. Now the bottom octave of this actually goes to stop diapason. It's not open pipes there. So here's the difference between that and the grate. Oop. You can hear the sound really changes there. That's really just bringing on the stop diapason bass. Okay, but it's a nice diapason. Different in character, partly because it's farther back and in the box, but the one for the grate is rather dominant. It's at the front intentionally. Very useful stops, both of them. Now the choralophone, that thin string sound I showed you. And here we got to use the stop diapason bass, but that really is a different sound. This is nice if I want a quiet sound to accompany something else, because I can then close the swell shutters, have a nice solo to accompany the melodia. Okay, here's the stopped diapason. These are wood stopped pipes. But it does have some personality to it for sure. Okay, now here's that walled flute, the one with the hole pierced in it that's actually double length. Now let's accompany that. I'll use the great dulciana because that's the only thing on the grate that's quiet enough to be an accompanying voice for that. Let's see if I can get that to work with the tremolo. Slow it down even a little more. Okay, now we have the oboe and its bottom octave, the bassoon. It's really just one sound all the way through. As I said before, these are reed pipes. Here's where it's bassoon, but you hear it's the same sound. Okay, now the two stops that Ronald Wall added to the swell, these are both with tapered pipes. The flautino, that's at 2-foot pitch, so 2 octaves up from the open diapason, or stopped diapason. Since it's a flute, we'll compare it to the stopped diapason. Not exactly the flutiest flute you ever heard. That's more of a hybrid, really. It adds some brightness, though. So normally we would pull that with 4-foot and 8-foot. Sometimes, though, on this organ, I'll use that with the diapason, too, just to give me a little more chorus on the swell. Okay, and this other one is the 19th. That's 2 octaves and a 5th higher. So, I'll show you that. Here's our 8-foot diapason. The 19th is going to give you that pitch way up there. It's a little flutier than the diapason voice. It's a little too bright for my taste, so it's one of the last things I'll bring on because it sort of takes over when you draw it. Often I'll pull the oboe in there too. Okay, now I'm going to show you the full chorus of what was here originally, the Steer and Turner voices. I guess there's no good way to show both sides of the stops, so you can take my word for it. I'm going to pull everything that was original from Steer and Turner, but none of the newer things, so you can hear that. And then I will add the newer things. Okay, so here are the Steer and Turner voices from 1872. Now I'll add the cornet, which wouldn't normally be thought of as a chorus, but I find it very useful. Just a little more grit in the chorus. The flautino, 2-foot, in the swell. Pulling the mixture the rest of the way so we get the 2 ranks that Wall added. I'm going to add the pedal stops, violoncello. With this much stuff going, it doesn't stick out, but if you're sitting over there, it would be more noticeable. And the Gouwens horn, and the Cremona. Add the 19th. And the trumpet. Okay, shutting off all the later added stuff one more time. So what was added to it made this already nice organ quite a bit more versatile. Now, one thing I do have to watch when I play this organ is that it doesn't have as steady a wind supply as organs built later on. So there's a tendency for the pitch to drop a little bit as I'm changing harmony, especially when I'm changing notes in the bass. So I will just try to show you that with a hymn here. Listen for it, you can hear how that top note jiggles when I hit the chord under it. So one of the things I've had to learn to do playing this organ is to release notes a little more gently. So I'm going to show you what happens when I am not being careful about that, and then I'll show you how I've learned to get it steadier. It's never 100%. But here's what happens if I'm not trying. Now. By letting go of the note just a little more slowly, you don't make the wind pressure jerk quite so much. It gives the reservoir a little more time to react and keep things steady. So that's a pretty thorough demonstration. If that's a little too much, the nice thing is you can play back parts of it or just watch it once and say, okay, that's nice, but it's here in case you're interested. So now you see inside and out what goes on with this organ. And I do love working with this instrument, by the way. Thank you for your attention.